Hello everyone, my name is Korosh Erfani and I am sociologist and the writer of the book Infinitism and also a few books on infinity and infinitology. In this program, we are making a lecture of the book Infinitylogy, which is this book with the title Infinitylogy and the subtitle Foundations of a New Discipline. So the idea is to establish a discipline that can study infinity for the practical usage. We started in the three last parts to make this lecture, and we finished the part that is effectively the foreword of the book. We finished that. If you are interested, you can watch it in the last third production that we had as a video set. And from today we will start with the introduction. I will read the different parts of this text and then I will explain it more and more. So let us start with the first paragraph of the introduction of the book, Infinitylogy, Foundations of a New Discipline. So, once human beings invented suitable telescopes, we discovered that space was bigger than what we thought before. Likewise, by building more perfect microscopes, scientists discovered that the texture of matter is composed of smaller particles than those they supposed earlier. This is a repeated trend with which the history of science is suffused. So that's the idea. When we start to use the more sophisticated tools for observing the space or observing the inner part of the different matters, we can see that there are more and more elements from which these two microscopic and macroscopic parts or space or frames are composed. So which means that if we get more sophisticated tools, we can effectively discover more and more elements that compose space, galaxies, universe, and also the deeper and deeper parts of the structure of matter, right? And that's what we can see in the history of science. And I wrote some articles about that, and that you can find in this website and also on the website of the Center for Research and Development of Infinitylogy that I will present later. So let's continue our lecture. From the above historical point, one can infer this basic idea. The more perfect our knowledge and tools become, the more constitutive elements we discover in the macrocosm as well as in the macrocosm. So this is what we see, right? If you look with all the details necessary at the history of science, astrology, or on the other hand, physics, biologies, and so on, you can see that there would be always and always other new elements that we will discover. So there is a question that will come in our mind immediately when we think like that if we get the more perfect tools, we can effectively discover more elements, more components, right? So look at the continuation of this paragraph. So if we assure the survival of our species with further advancement, we would be able to discover a greater extent of these constitutive levels of material existence. It would even be possible that at a given stage we gain an exponential momentum in detection, sightings, and discoveries. So this means that in order to get there, to discover more and more, what we need is just to assure the survival of the human beings. That's all. If we can keep the human civilization on the earth, it would be possible to imagine that with more advancement, more progress in science, philosophy, mathematics, and also in technology, we will have the acquaintance or the knowledge of the new constitutive levels of material existence, as well as in macrocosm or in microcosms. So there is no really any boundary. There is no end. Whatever is your choice to go through the microcosmos or macrocosmos, you will find that there would be always and always more and more constitutive elements, more and more structure, more and more elements, more and more particles, subparticles, subparticles, and so on and so on. How we know that? Through the history of science. Because if you read that, you see that from a very general idea about the natural world, we get where we are with a very precise idea about really small elements from which the matter is composed, right? So that's why we think that by continuing, by just assuring our survival as the human beings and going through the same momentum of the advancement and the progress in science and technology, we can find more and more the constitutive elements, more and more particles, more and more components. We said as well in macrocosmos as in microcosmos. So same thing, the same reality is in front of us. And as we saw in the last phrase of this paragraph, it would be even possible that at a given stage we gain an exponential momentum, right? Which means that there would be a huge speed, a huge momentum of discovery and detection. Why? Because we start to accumulate more and more knowledge, more and more theories, more and more data, and then we can use them to accelerate the momentum of sightings and discovery. All right, let's continue. Almost immediately, a question emerged in any inquiring mind. What's this question? If the persistence of humankind continues, is there any end to this process of discovering new macro and micro echelons in the universe? You know, that's maybe the most fundamental question that we can put regarding this topic. Finally, okay, we keep going with the progress, with discoveries, with taking knowledge of more and more elements. And finally, where we have to stop. Why we have to stop? Will we stop somewhere? Will we be an end somewhere? And where is it? Where is it exactly? To say that, okay, from this step, from this point, we don't have any other elements, or sub-elements. We don't have any particle or subparticle beyond that. Is it possible? Well, let's see how we try to answer to this question in the book. While it's difficult to answer this query positively beforehand, right? Human history in general and the factual trend of the history of science in particular suggests we answer negatively to this question. Negatively. What does it mean? It means that no, there is no end. We shouldn't be worried about that. If there was an end, we should have touched that before. It's not the case. So that's why we said no. If we keep making headway in science and technology, there would not be any limit to the levels of the structure of matter. And that's a huge claim. What we are suggesting here, very moderately, is huge. Is the starting point of all the idea of the infinitism and all the work of the infinitology, which means that there is no any end to our exploration for the matter in the inner structure of the matter, in the sub particles, or at the biggest echelon that we can imagine, but it doesn't depend really on our imagination. It goes on, it keeps going, with more and more bigger and bigger space or universe. So the idea is that there would be never an end. Neither for the microcosmos nor for the macrocosmos. So we have to keep in our mind that the idea of infinitism, the basic of the infinitology, is actually not considering any end, any limit, any boundary, any endpoint for whatever is material in the macro or micro levels. That's the idea. That's the main idea. If you grasp this idea, you can understand everything that we are going to say regarding infinitism, infinity, and infinitology, right? Okay, let's continue. We said this means that we could infinitely explore the macrocosmos and the microcosms and the macrocosms, and the components that we will find in the larger universe in the small scale version would be infinite. So whatever is the scale you are exploring, it could be macrocosms or microcosms. Anyway, we can always and always find something new, something beyond. Beyond means smaller in the microcosm and bigger in the macrocosm. And later I will explain that all these issues that we have with the dimensions, macro, micro, are completely superfluous. And this is the invention of our mind. And the structure of matter doesn't obey, doesn't follow at all these classification that we do regarding the structure of the universe in the micro level or macro level. It doesn't make sense. But for now, it's not really our issue. The idea is that the components that we will find in the universe would be more and more infinitely, endlessly. You see that from here we are in the introduction of this book. from the introduction, from the beginning, we are establishing the basic ideas of what could be a new understanding of of infinity as a concept, but not as a speculative concept, but as a material concept, right? As a materialist or materialistic concept. This is our approach. In infinitism, we are not really inventing something intellectually or by imaginary. No. We are touching the reality. We are going through the material world and universe scientifically and with the help of technology, and we try to understand what's going on there in order to establish the basic understanding of what is the infinite. Now, we continue by saying this. But how could we ascertain this answer, right? That there would be more and more, infinitely. How can we gain confidence in the endlessness of the process of finding something bigger or smaller than what we have already supposed as being, pay attention, the biggest or as the smallest? And we will see later that how it's far from any precaution, right? Far from any well-thought approach to talk about the biggest, the smallest. And unfortunately, you will see that this is what the today's science is saying. They are talking about the smallest element, the smallest particles. The smallest? What does it mean? When the history of science is there to show us that century after century, right, we got some new knowledge about the new elements, the new particles. So what, smaller, yes, but smallest? You see, from this initial part, which is not for now more than an introduction, we can see that a lot of ideas that we got as obvious, as evident for ourselves in the scientific community could be effectively shaped by such a philosophical view that asserts that there is no smallest, there is no the smallest, there is no the biggest. So, let's see. To find a relevant answer to these questions, our suggestion is to establish a specialized field of study focused on infinity. You know, we don't want just to claim something, conceptually, speculatively, and conceptually saying that, okay, it would be this or that. No. We would like to have a methodology for that. We would like to establish a discipline, and that can take care methodologically or methodically of infinity, and by going through a very serious methodological process to see if effectively we can assert that there would be never any the biggest, the smallest in the universe. Is it true or not? We don't say that there wouldn't be, but we said that it could be, but we have to verify that. And in order to verify that, we need a discipline. We need a institutionalized, well-established framework of study of infinity. And that's why we are suggesting that here in the introduction. A discipline that takes into consideration the features of infiniteness and its modus operandi, and the way that it operates. Inside matter, how the infiniteness is going on inside matter, within matter. So, how we call this discipline? We call such a discipline infinitology, right? What is this? It's a multidisciplinary field where philosophical theorems open the way to scientific discoveries, and these latter help technology bring forth the necessary tools for more efficiency. So you can see that from the beginning we are funding this discipline on three foundation, right? In the three solid ground. First, philosophy, in order to give us a very large idea, and then science, in order to make the discovery, the different discoveries that are necessary to affirm or to verify our hypothesis, and finally technology, in order to provide the tools, because we need a lot of tools for that. So that's a multidisciplinary field. Even though we talk about a discipline, but this discipline includes all of this: philosophy, sciences, and also technologies. And that's the interesting part of this adventure. So now, infinitology needs to be powerful and well-connected disciplines, since it wants to drive beyond any other specific knowledge of the universe. So we are talking about something that goes beyond the frameworks of any science, right? So that's why we need also philosophy, because the philosophy has this capacity of, going beyond the specific matter, the specific fields where this or that science is operating. Now, we said it should embrace all the scientific acquaintances, and at the same time, it goes much farther than each of them. Not only we use the different scientific acquaintance, the different scientific disciplines, but also we go farther and further, right? Infinitology presents the most challenging undertakings a new discipline has ever faced, right? So that's why from this beginning, that's the first book we published in 2021 regarding this new discipline, infinitology. From these first steps, we are aware that that would be a real challenge. So that's why we call that the most challenging undertakings a new discipline has ever faced, right? And because any other discipline has a very defined field of study, but here we are talking about something that is essentially, substantially, and conceptually huge: infinity. Infinitology, the knowledge of infinity. So that's why it's a question of a real challenge with multiple, sub-challenges. And that's why we want to elaborate it in the frame of an institution, and we try to get through this institution by creating a center that is called the Center of Research, and here let me show you in the home. Here we are. The crdi.com brings you to this website, the Center for Research and Development of Infinitology. and you can find many ideas and articles, papers, books, journal, etc. on this challenge, on this discipline that we want to create in order to study infinity and see how we can effectively apply our knowledge of infinity in the real world, how we can get some mastering of matter, the material world, by having this idea that there wouldn't be any end to the structure of matter, right? And from that moment, many changes will be brought through what we are doing as scientific work, technological endeavors, or the philosophical speculations. So that's why this is a very exciting challenge, at least for me, and I am trying to share with you. And we will continue the lecture of the introduction of the book Infinitylogy, Foundations of a New Discipline, in the next video. Thank you very much for watching that, and see you soon. Bye.